2024 European farmers' protests were a series of protests by farmers against low food prices, proposed environmental regulations, and trade in agricultural products with non-European Union member states. These protests were widely criticised for being influenced by the far right, and the fact-checking sites Neutral and Science Feedback concluded that they were to sabotage climate action. Later, the UK joined in the protests in response to proposed changes to inheritance tax on agricultural assets. The widespread distribution of photos of Nigel Farage in a Barber jacket and flat cap seemed designed to make Liberals, like myself, sceptical of the farmers' motives. Not least as I'd grown up with stories of how landowners had spread myxomatosis to reduce the damage caused by rabbits and the source of free meat to country folk. Nevertheless, there really does seem to be a trend for the super rich and hedge funds to buy up food-producing land the world over. Something we should all be alarmed by, shouldn't we? It was thus with utter amazement when I discovered that the fascist origins of the environmental movement, including how environmentalism seemed to be linked to eugenics, and that in the UK between the wars a countryside movement known as the Green Shirts had existed, even that some of their related policies had gained traction in Canada, even capturing the premiership of Alberta. It is these somewhat unbelievable observations that I address in this vlog. George Vernon Wallop, the 9th Earl of Portsmouth, 16th of May 1898 to 28th of September 1984, Viscount or Lord Lymington from 1925 until 1943, was a British landowner, writer on agricultural topics and pro-Axis fascist politician. Born into a landowning aristocratic family whose homestead was Farley Wallop, Farley Wallop had been, since the Norman conquest, been orientated towards farming and agriculture. Lymington was influenced by a specific set of changes. The ground on which the British aristocracy had been set had been consistently shaken from the 19th to the 20th century. Despite being born in Chicago, Lord Lymington was Conservative Member of Parliament for Basingstoke from 1929 until 1934. Lymington directed agricultural auctions and fetes across England, and in May 1927 was elected chairman of the Guild of Hampshire Craftsmen. He acquainted himself with other aristocrats by attending balls and hunts, and held lectures on agricultural matters. In common with many from the British aristocracy at the time, Lymington wanted to recreate a version of the feudal system, which led him to own a lavish estate in the White Islands of Kenya. Lymington treated his black African workers very much like serfs, while he behaved like a feudal lord, as did so many at the time. Nor was Lymington unique in rejecting democracy. In September 1913, Lymington joined the Back to the Land movement, the English Mystery, that sought to find the lost secrets of the English. The English Mystery favoured a return to the Middle Ages, as the group favoured deindustrialisation, the revival of the guild system, organic farming and rule by the aristocracy, popularly known as feudalism. Like much of Lymington's beliefs, implied in this was a critique of the banks and financial capitalism, which he associated with the Jewish race, with only aristocrats being trusted to deal with money. It included virulent racism, as the English Mystery wanted to protect the English race from inferior races. A split in a mystery left Wallop leading a successor, the English array. It was active from 1936 to the early months of World War II. Lymington met several times with Sir Oswald Mosley to discuss an alliance between the English array and the British Union of Fascists. Lymington was willing to work with Mosley, but did not want to see the English array absorbed into the BUF. The array's members were tasked with survival of the best type of Englishman, preserving the identity of the nation through a gradual process of change, and restoring sound tradition as the foundation of government. Recruited from demobbed soldiers, they appear to have been particularly popular in Hampshire, Devon, Dorset, Essex, Hull, Northumberland, Norfolk, Carmarthen and Staffordshire, although probably never had more than 200 members. Famine in England, 1938, by Lymington, was an agricultural manifesto, but traded on racial overtones of urban immigration. Famine in England was concerned with the aliens and scum said to be settling in British cities, along with sustained attack on international finance, together with panegyrics for the beauty of the English countryside, the great white northern races of Europe and the concentration camps of Nazi Germany. Whilst most of famine in England was concerned about problems with British agriculture, but there were several chapters devoted to the scum of subhuman population in Britain who were willing tools for the communists, since revolution means an opportunity to gratify their lusts. The return of Merry England, as Lymington wrote, was built upon first agricultural, racial, imperial, but also masculine revival. The project of national rebirth Lymington was outlining here was through an identifiably masculine and patriarchal, as well as racial and imperial lens. Lymington felt as though the women of England had been forcibly removed from their traditional and rightful place at the home, and as a result women should be retaught the forgotten arts of housecraft. The marked similarities of the idea of the English array and the National Socialists in Germany was much noted at the time, and Lymington led to dissolve the English array in 1940, as he feared he would be interned as a fascist. He joined the British People's Party in 1943. Lord Lymington was an early advocate of organic farming in Britain. He's been described as a central figure in the organic movement's coalescence during the 1930s and 40s. In 1941, with Rolf Gardner, he founded the Kinship in Husbandsbury, a precursor to the Soil Association. He believed that the UK, or maybe I'm being too inclusive, as Lymington's concern was with the Anglo-Saxon peasantry, to be dominated by urbanism and industry, and suffering from the social instability consequent upon perceived imbalance. To increase the rural population, it was necessary to replace industrial quantitative standards of efficiency, output per man, by biological qualitative standards, output per acre of nutritionally valuable produce. Seeing organic methods as labour intensive, they called for a return to the land, envisaging, in defiance of agricultural trends, an expanding of rural population of organic smallholders. Interesting smallholders who needed only limited education, unlike their aristocratic betters. The shift from outright racism to a focus on soil was outlined in his 1941 book, Alternative to Death. It outlines a better life for people on the land, using organic methods to return to soil, to its natural balance, recognising that mass-produced food was already depleted of its natural value. A positive consequence of the resultant decline in agricultural production would be a genocide of the decadent urban dwellers. Thus, Alternatives to Death is not a break with his far-right politics, but really does merge fascism with environmentalism. The Kinship in Husbandry was founded in 1941 after Rolf Gardner proposed the idea to Lord Lymington. Racism did inform organic husbandry when right-wing politics came together in the minds of some of the organic pioneers. Although, of course, traditions from animal husbandry had a major impact on social Darwinism and, with it, racism. Soil is the perfect vehicle for the transformation from racism to ecology, as soil is so little understood, even today, by agricultural scientists. Thus, soil serves as the perfect vehicle to suggest that capitalism and science is destroying agriculture and a way of life. Nevertheless, especially during the Second World War, the more scientific approach was enforced on British agriculture by the War Act to increase agricultural production. Keen young farm workers, like my father, were put into inefficient farms to manage them with ploughing and liberal application of chemicals. Thus, despite my concerns about my dad's methods, he was doing his bit in the fight against fascism. Perhaps Lymington's closest agricultural friend and ally, though, was Rolf Gardner, the Dorset forester and Morris dancer, who made his estate near Shaftesbury a centre of rural restoration, holding harvest camps and trying to revive the disappearing link between farming and a sense of the sacred. Gardner and Lymington shared a particular political agenda. The former's career and his influence on the early organic movement are well chronicled and need not be recounted again here. Suffice it to say that he and Lymington were at the heart of the Kinship in Husbandry group, which during the 1940s sought to spread the organic method through as many channels as possible. Henry Rolf Gardner, 5th of November 1902 to 26th of November 1971, was an English rural revivalist who helped to bring back folk dancing styles, including Morris dancing and sword dancing. I knew my prejudice wasn't entirely random. He was born in Fulham and son of Sir Arthur Henderson Gardner and a student of St John's College, Cambridge, where he was a member of the Kippo Kift youth group. Initially he was a youth leader involved in exchanges with Germany. Gardner published his maiden issue of Youth in June 1923, a first-hand account of the cult of nakedness in Germany by Harold Barlow. It was one of the earliest attempts to introduce German naturalism movement to a general British readership. He also found groups significant in the British history of organic farming. His forestry methods were far ahead of their time, and he was a founder member of the Soil Association. He sympathised with Nazism, more specifically its pro-ruralist policies, and participated in interwar far-right politics. He organised summer camps with music, dance and community aims across class and cultures. Rolf took over Gore Farm in North Dorset in 1927 and continued what became a large-scale forestation project. He became active in Dorset society, becoming a member of the Dorset County Council between 1937 and 1946. High Sheriff of Dorset, 1967 to 68, President of the Dorset Federation of Young Farmers Clubs, 1944 to 46, Chairman and President of the Dorset Branch for the Council for Protection of Rural England, 1957 to 1972, as well as other rural and landscape committees and working parties. In a series of publications from 1928, he articulated racial theories and the need for natural reversals of the impoverishment of the stock. He was also ecocentric, looking for a united and pagan England and Germany, and supporter of Nazi pro-ruralist policies. He was a member of the English Mystery and then the English Array. He moved from a belief in the value of honest work to connection and belongings, and ultimately to a vision and interplay of the health of soil, animals, crops and people. During the war, Rolf Gardner was prominent in establishing the Council for the Church and Countryside, a body which served as a front for the organic movement. The Kindred of the Kibbo Kift was a camping, hiking and handicraft group with ambitions to bring world peace. It was associated with the charismatic artist and writer John Hargreaves, also known as White Fox, from 1894 to 1982. The Kindred was founded in 1920, and it's still in existence with its offshoot, the Woodcraft Folk, whom one of my son's friends was a member of their Hebden Bridge branch. Hargreaves' Green Shirt movement for social credit was established in 1931 to 2, and which became in 1935, the Social Credit Party of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. This wound up in 1951. Hargreaves was introduced to the economic theory of social credit, the creation of Major C.H. Douglas. Douglas noticed that weekly total cost of goods produced was greater than the sums paid to the workers for wages, salaries and dividends. This seemed to contradict the theory of classical economics, saying that all costs are distributed simultaneously as purchasing power. The basis of Douglas's reform idea was to free workers from the system by bringing purchasing power in line with production, which became known as social credit. His proposal had two main elements: a national dividend to distribute money, debt-free credit equal to all citizens, over and above their earnings, to help bridge the gap between the purchasing power and prices. Also a price adjustment mechanism called the price to forestall inflation. The just price was effectively reduce retail prices by a percentage that reflected the physical efficiency of the production system. Hargreaves took up the creed with fervour, attracted by its seemingly scientific truth and sense of mission. Social credit changed Hargreaves' belief in the reformed individual as the key to a better society. The key was, actually, now he believed, a reformed economic system. By the late 1920s, he'd repurposed the Kindred to be a megaphone for social credit, bringing the esoteric economic theory to the public at large. Hargreaves joined up with the Legion of Unemployed in Coventry in 1930 and furnished them with green shirts and berets. In 1932, Kibbo Kift were also in the green uniform, together forming the Green Shirt movement for social credit. Whilst reminiscent of Sir Roderick Spode's black shorts, the green shirts actually fought Mosley's black shirts, along with the communist red shirts. Initially staying out of parliamentary politics, Hargreaves changed his mind in 1935, rebranding the Green Shirt movement as the Social Credit Party of Great Britain and Northern Ireland for the purpose of fighting the 1935 election. He was also impressed by the success of the Social Credit Party of Alberta, Canada. Hargreaves travelled to Alberta, frustrated at the lack of progress the social credit government there was making. He was appointed as an economic advisor to the government of Alberta and was thus disowned by Douglas. He left Canada in 1936, returning to find the Social Credit Party in disarray after the Public Order Act 1936 banned the wearing of uniforms by non-military personnel. Undeterred, Hargreaves steered the Social Credit Party into a more evangelical mood, adopting quasi-religious slogans, God's providence is mine inheritance, and organising public services of national regeneration. We have come to see the organic and environmental movement as of the left, but now I'm not so sure. The history of the environmental movement in Britain emerges from several strands. Its roots in the extreme right wing are usually ignored. In 1941, the author of Tarka the Otter, Henry Williamson, was a founding member of Kinship in Husbandry, but also an ex-member of the British Union of Fascists. Like so many of the back-to-nature types, with a firm belief in a more ordered society through the liberal administration of castor oil, Williamson was born in the city. A fellow ex-BUF member, Jurian Jenks, went on to join Lady Eva Balfour in establishing the Soil Association in the late 1940s, and continued to use the charity as a vehicle to espouse his extreme right-wing views into the late 1950s. I should also mention fellow Salopian Sir Albert Howard, for whom there is no real evidence of fascist leanings, although certainly shared some of Lymington and Gardner's views. Policies advanced by the Green Party today, support for small family farms, organicism and soil health, state restrictions on chemical fertiliser and pesticide use, food security and a top-down advocacy for a meat-free diet were previously devised and championed by Richard Walter Dare, the Reichsminister of Food and Agriculture. Indeed, the current rewilding movement is just another interpretation of the feudalism of Lord Lymington. I return to my observation that hedge funds and the super-rich seem to be buying up the countryside. Does anyone else find it sinister that both the bad guys and the good guys have links to eugenics? Are we being primed once more to accept eugenics? Oh, and should we not forget the unsavoury connection to Morris dancing, a gift to my illogical prejudice.